Hello, everybody. What we're going to be going over today is a quick, hopefully, quick lab on load balancing. Now, the idea here is that we are load balancing across regions. So think of having users in different continents, different time zones, different areas where you want to provide quick and speedy um, access for them to your various applications. So that's kind of the idea here. A lot of our geographic concerns, a lot of our, again, speed and access issues these days are pretty much taken care of by load balancers, which in the past were to make sure that servers weren't overwhelmed and that they're sharing the load. We can also identify people based on their IP address and shuffle them to the correct location. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. Now, this one has a lot of G-Cloud commands going on as a fair warning. There's going to be some copy pasting going on into the shell. I'll try to walk you through what's going on with those though. Again, you can do all of this in the console as well if you want to click through things too, but a lot of times it's just quicker in the shell. So I understand I am temporary student. Let's get our Cloud Shell up and running. Touch larger. Shuffle you over here. Okay. All right, so this is kind of what we're going to be seeing. So we've got two different users coming in. Looks like we're splitting based on IP4 and IP6, but then we're going to route to different zones. So here, Central 1B, Europe West 1B. Ours might be different based on whatever they kind of fill in the blanks with, but that's kind of what we got going on here. All right, so we are logged in, Cloud Shell is open, we should be already activated. Now let's create some instances. So first things first, in creating a load balancer, I'm sure I've mentioned this already, but this is now a managed service, meaning that anytime we want to do load balancing in the cloud, all we have to do is configure it. We don't have to manually set up like health checks on every single server and all kinds of that fun stuff that we had to do in the bad old days. But what we do need to do is create some compute instances, and we need to create templates for those and a managed instance group for everything that we want to manage, basically so that our load balancer can very quickly start up and spin down instances without the need for external intervention. So these commands that you see here are two G-Cloud commands for creating a virtual machine instance. So what we see is the first one is ww1, second's ww2. They're both Debian 11 running a micro instance, so not very powerful. They're both in Central 1B. They have an HTTP tag that we can use for filtering in the firewall later. And we have some metadata going in for updating the machine, installing Apache, restarting that, and then giving us a custom homepage. All right, so I'm going to run both of these, and then we should have two instances in Central 1. Okay, authorize. Let's go over to Compute Engine while that's spinning. All right, so we see that creating. And, okay, that's good. We actually have IPs already, so that's cool. I'm going to create this one, and while that's running, I'm going to grab this IP address, go over here, and we should see soon. I mean, it's probably still firing up, so this might be a hot minute before that renders out. But I'll hold that there for now. Check our progress. This is still going, so where's my refresh button? There we go. Okay, two instances, both running. Yeah, take a second here. If we go again. (16) 116. This is not secured, right? Really hope that I didn't like do a DNS cache here now. VP colon that. So what it could be doing and why it's not popping up immediately is that it's probably running through its update cycle that we specified. Let's see if this one's up. No. I'll come back to that. All right, while that's updating, I suppose, let's create 3 and 4. So this is going to be the same thing, except we're saying you go to US, Europe, West 4A. Same for this one. So basically we have 2 VMs per region. And the idea would be that we shuffle people between them based on their IP address. Okay, so that's going to go there. Any Dana. Okay, you're up and running. Oops, that's not how you copy and paste. That is. I'd really like this to be up. If I go over here. Nope. Okay. Well, what happens if I pop into the SSH session? Okay, if I do cat var www. So Apache was installed, that's good. And I see the rendered code, ww1, so it should be up and running. It's possible that we have things blocked right now too, I suppose. I'd have expected that to work. What if I do a curl from inside? Yeah, okay. Oh, you know what? I'm an idiot. I'm sure you're all well aware. Port 80 is not open anywhere, so of course none of this is going to work. Okay, we need a firewall rule. Didoy. Firewall. Oh, why am I going to firewall? I can just run this command here. Okay, clear. Firewall commands. Okay, we are creating a rule to allow port 80 on anything with the target tag of HTTP tag. Weirdly enough, that's what every single one of our virtual machines have. So if I curl again, hey, look at that, we have data. Wow. Can I do that? Hey, there it is. Look at that. There's our www1. Wow. Wow. How did I forget the firewall rule? Okay, so we have accessible VMs. Now we need to create our load balancer. So again, this is a managed service now for us. So what we're going to do is G-Cloud compute addresses create. So this is going to be the name of our load balancer. We're going to say it's on IP4 for the global addresses, I suppose. All right, so we basically need to create placeholder for that. We are going to create an instance group for every one of our zones. So Central and B gets a instance group, and Europe West also gets an instance group. So if we pop back over to compute, we see, where's our instance groups at? Here we go. There we go. There's our instance groups that we created there. And now we want to add our VMs to each instance group that we need. Now this first one is going to take ww1 and 2, put it into the US Central instance group, and then likewise the other one is going to put the Euro ones into Euro West 4. And we're going to create a health check. So essentially, is our web server accessible? And if not, our health check will have failed. If a health check fails, then whatever our load balancer is configured to do will fire. In which case, let's say ww1 fails its health check, while ww2 is now the primary server. Okay, but that is basically just active. Now we need to configure everything. So this is where we get into a lot of the fiddly bits. So you see a lot of text here. All right, so we need to handle ports, we need to link together backend services, we need to map everything together. If we are doing HTTPS, which I don't think we're going to be doing if I recall the rest of the lab, that would need to be configured. We need to set up proxies and forwarding, so that's everything that we're going to be doing here. So we're going to set some named ports. So 80 is going to be named, or it's going to be mapped to our instance groups. So it shouldn't take too long. Okay. Halfway done. Reserved IP address is this. Okay. Now, create a backend service. So we're going to start linking together our services with our health check. Again, like I said, a lot of copy pasting, but essentially a bunch of like step-by-step linking together all these services. So create a compute backend services, create. So essentially map the health check into our, well, we're not mapping anything yet, we're just creating the placeholder. We'll be mapping it in the next step. I misspoke there. Search. Load balancing. Let's see, backends. This is what we're creating. So basically to search for load balancer. And here's our backend that we created there. So this is going to manage the kind of the back end of our load balancer. And what we're doing in the next step here is we are specifying what is going to be monitored by the load balancer. So run this and let it percolate and then talk through this. So we're looking at utilization, which is essentially CPU utilization. So how busy is the machine? Max of 80%. If it's over 80% of CPU usage, it is considered unhealthy. And then we're going to link it to the instance groups and the resources that we've previously created. We'll do that for Central, which is running now. Central, yep. And then the next one is Europe. Where can I make this mouse? It's so pixelated. All right, that is good. Let's run the Europe one. And let's look ahead. This will take a second here. All right. This is one of those things too where it could depend on your resources. So we're saying 80% CPU usage. This is a micro instance, so it only has one virtual CPU with barely any RAM. So if our CPU is getting maxed out, we know this thing is not performing well, right? If we have a much better configured machine, we could play with the CPU usage and maybe look at RAM usage or how many cores are active or what is the average CPU usage or something like that. Okay, so that is done. Should be set there. Good to go. Now let's link everything together by clicking the wrong thing. Apologies. Clear you out. So create a web map, mapping that backend service that we created here. Okay, did that. Set up our proxy for routing. G-Cloud compute target HTTP proxy, create proxy, link to the web map. Okay. And then we're going to get our IP addresses, which I could just go into the environment here and look that up, but here is our address, right? And then we want to create a forwarding rule. So based on this address that we had before, we actually have something to type in. Oh my God, it's incredible. All right. Our load balancer is 34.49.108.59. Right, and everything else. So we are creating a forwarding rule, HTTP, CR rule, starting with this address. It's global. Our proxy is the one that we are created back here, and it's running on port 80. And so that's going to go. This one shouldn't take that long, I don't think. Let's see, we are at 14 minutes. I'll probably I'll pause and be right. No, I don't need to pause. Look at that. It's already done. It's like just long enough that I want to pause the video and not long enough that it makes sense. Okay, so we have our map. Good. And if we were to refresh up here, we should start seeing things. So here's our load balancer. We have a back end. I don't think we've created a front. We did create a front end yet. And we have some policies. Why did that happen? Weird. Okay. All right, so we have everything set up there. Let's get our forwarding rule IP addresses now. Gcloud compute forwarding rules list. Easy enough. So there is our IP address. Load balancing, so we should see a green check mark for load balancer. Dismiss. Where's my green check mark to make sure life is good here? Come on. Green check mark. Hey, look at that. 1 backend service, 2 instant groups, 0 network endpoint groups. So it is running. That's good. Click the load balancer web map. In the backend section, confirm the instances are healthy by checking the healthy column. Okay, let's make this bigger. Where's the healthy column? Healthy, 2 of 2. So our 4 VMs are good to go. Okay. The instances are healthy, detailed information. Okay. In the front end section, copy the IP address and paste it into a browser. Okay, that's our IP address. Yeah. And when I refresh, so I'm hitting Control R, I'm getting bounce between 1 and 2. Now it makes sense that I'm not going to 3 or 4 because I am closer to US Central than I am to US or to Europe West 4. All right, okay. Now the next step here is to shut off HTTP access from everywhere but the load balancer, because I can still technically, sorry, my earbud just kind of bleeped, meaning that the battery's dying, so I probably need to get this recording finished. So basically I can still access the VMs by themselves. So if I do history grep curl, if I run this, should still be able to access the VM directly. Yep. So just what I did here was I grabbed the command I ran to get the curl output for our web page. Still accessible, but we don't want that, right? So I only want the load balancer active, so we're going to add another firewall rule for everything on target tag, and we are going to allow port 80, and then we are going to remove the rule for everything else. Yes. So www firewall goes away. So we pop over to firewall. We should see, well, our policy for www firewall is gone, assuming that was there before. And our, yep. Okay, so port 80 is our internal stuff. Okay, now if I curl this again, doesn't work. It is blocked. However, if I refresh here, it's still accessible. So this IP address here is my load balancer. The one here is my direct IP address. Right. We're going to skip this part because it's just extra bits. But overall, pretty straightforward. So again, there's a lot of copying and pasting of gcloud commands here. But kind of the important thing to figure out is, like, what are the steps to configure a load balancer? Right now, it seems kind of very esoteric in how everything has to be set up step by step. I assume at some point this will probably be simplified in the future, because if you're not familiar with all of these types of things, this could be a little tricky. There's a lot of fiddly bits again with, the various like placeholder services, and you have to fill it in with something, and then you have to do another configuration bit. Again, it's not that bad, really. It's basically creating the instance groups, creating the health check service, creating the load balancer service, and then tying everything together. But if this is something that you wanted to do, you've got all of your gcloud commands kind of nicely laid out here for you to go forth and tweak. All right, 20-minute video. Apologies for the length, but it's fairly deep web. So I will see you all next time. Bye, everybody.